Mr. De La Cruz just hung up the phone looking very happy. Using my skills, I just transferred over $10 million through 4 countries and 12 banks, and successfully laundered his funds and protected him from any government investigations. My name is Tony Cardone. I have become well known and respected as someone who is excellent at moving money, hiding funds, and protecting people from prosecution and going to jail. I never ask where the money comes from, and I never interfere with their business to protect myself from the feds and keep my moral compass in the right direction. Oh, I know what these people do for a living, but I believe in the rule, don't ask, then you won't be lied to. The work I do has brought me a good amount of money, and using my own strategies, I have 16 bank accounts in 8 countries, 10 crypto wallets, and a company that owns my house, cars, pays all my bills and expenses. I receive a salary from the company of $50,000 per year, which I use for unexpected expenses. The company makes a small profit every year to remain legal in the eyes of the tax authorities. This strategy also protects me from any civil suits, lawsuits, or divorces, since I show little net worth and very little income on the books. Many of my clients understand my value and offer me things that I cannot accept as thanks for solving their money problems. They offer me women, drugs, trips, protection, just about anything you can imagine. Until now, I haven't taken anything from them. My current situation has created a need for me to accept some help with surveillance, protection, and some aspects of force. My business friends were glad that they could finally help me and thanked me for the work I did for them. My wife, Jen, considers me a financial advisor, which I am. I am a certified financial advisor. She doesn't know how much I earn, what my funds are, or any of my offshore accounts. All she knows is that the company is paying off the mortgage on the $5 million property, cars, and expenses. She never really asks it because she doesn't have to work, drives a new luxury car every year, and has an unlimited budget for shopping and entertainment. I thought that Jen was happy and loved being with me throughout the 5 years of our marriage. Jen was great in bed, where we often had loving sex several nights each week. She was wild in bed. She knew how to turn me on and excite me. In turn, I satisfied her. Fun, fantasy, sex, and love were a great combination, and I was living in paradise. But apparently, my paradise was about to experience a Category 5 hurricane. Jen and I dated for 2 years and got married at the tender age of 25. We've been married for 5 years. Jen just turned 30 years old, and with her big round breasts, long, sexy legs, and amazing figure, she could easily be any man's dream trophy wife. Blonde hair and amazing blue eyes can charm any man. She was always looked at by men and constantly pestered, but she did not respond to any of their advances and happily showed off her engagement ring and 3-carat diamond ring, letting them know that she was married. Before we got married, I found out that in college she dated a man named Josh Winters. She was madly in love with Josh, but he wasn't ready to settle down. Instead, Josh enlisted in the Marines, and their relationship eventually fizzled out. Now I found out that 8 years later, Josh Winters left the service and returned to our city, and Jen could not get over her love for him. When Josh returned from his 2 tours, he, of course, sought out old friends, including my wife. Jen had always been under his spell, and after he got her cell phone number from a mutual friend, he texted and called her, trying to meet up like old times. It was 6 weeks ago when Jen started acting differently, probably out of guilt for communicating with Josh and keeping it a secret. Excessive attention and additional sexual games with me were pleasant, but unusual for Jen. She was always attentive and cheerful, but it was clear from her actions that something had changed. I didn't wait and paid closer attention to Jen. That weekend, one of our friends mentioned Josh at a barbecue and said he was back in town. I asked when he returned, and it coincided with the changes I noticed in Jen. The next day, I called one of my business friends and told him what was going on and that I might need his help. He was excited that he could finally do something for me after all the money I made for him and how I kept him out of trouble with the feds. I gave him all the names and information, and he told me that they would contact me soon. Who knows what these guys do, but they very quickly gave me a 4-inch dossier on Josh Winters containing almost his entire life history and information. Everything from a copy of his birth certificate to his college records to his family tree to his military records. I knew more about this guy than his own mother. I also received a daily printout of his text messages, including over 15 per-day messages to my wife. I was told not to ask where they got this information. At first, the messages were friendly and what you would expect from an old friend. But after the first week, they became sexual. I was glad to see Jen put a stop to his advances. But after another week of his persistence, he was finally able to overcome the barriers, and she began to flirt back. My anger towards this predator grew because I knew Jen still had feelings for this creep, and I knew there was trouble ahead. After 4 weeks of him flirting and texting, he convinced Jen to meet him for lunch. The dude even had the nerve to ask her to wear something sexy for him because he missed her so much. To my horror, she agreed and even asked if she should forget her panties, just like old times. I spat as my anger reached a level I hadn't felt in a long time. I asked my business partners for advice, and they gave me some ideas on how to deal with this guy. We agreed that it would be best for me to meet them face-to-face while they were together at lunch, with someone nearby for protection if needed. Of course, we knew exactly what time and where they would meet from my friend's surveillance group, which was helping me with this problem. I entered the restaurant and found them sitting in a secluded area. Jen was wearing a sexy dress with a very low cut and no bra, which made me furious again. They sat with their backs to the restaurant, sitting together on one side of a private booth. They looked pretty cozy. I saw a man following me who I assumed was one of my bodyguards as I approached their table. My wife and her beau both looked at me when I said hello. "Hey, Jenny," I said, sliding into the booth across from them. The large man who had been watching me was now sitting 3 tables away from me. Looking at Jen with a friendly smile, I asked, "Aren't you going to introduce me to your friend?" The scene was intense as I sat there looking into Jen's eyes. Josh looked at me with a confused expression, but my wife looked at me with a mixed expression of shock and guilt. They continued to sit side by side, holding hands on the table. After she realized what was happening, she tried to free her hand from Josh's, but he now held it tightly, giving me a smile that turned into a smirk, showing me that she was with him. This self-confident scoundrel had no intention of backing down. "Honey, this is Josh Winters. Josh, this is my husband, Tony." I've never seen her so nervous. Josh seemed to find it funny and didn't say a word and just kept giving me a knowing smirk as if to say, "I've got your wife, and there's nothing you can do about it, buddy." Without wasting any time, I just looked at Jen and said, trying to remain calm, "I hate to disturb your dinner, but I need to talk to my wife for a few minutes alone. Could you let her out of the stall?" He reluctantly let go of her hand and walked out of the booth, allowing her to leave. She stood up, clutching her purse to her bare chest, standing between Josh and me, looking scared and worried. I took her hand and led her to the back of the restaurant, towards the restrooms. Still nervous and feeling guilty about being caught like this with Josh, she walked quietly without saying a word. I dragged her into the empty men's room and started talking. "Jen, you're not wearing a bra, and your tits are just sticking out in that dress. You're dressed like a fallen woman, and I don't understand why you're so disrespectful to me." She stood there and cried without saying a word. Then I lifted the hem of her dress to make sure she really wasn't wearing panties. She saw my expression of horror and then rage. Holding the dress above her waist, I turned her around to face the mirror and forced her to look at her reflection without panties. "No panties? Is this how you dress when I'm not around? Jen, what the fuck are you up to? Are you turning into a fallen woman? This is unacceptable behavior from my wife." She screamed, pulling her dress down to cover her nakedness. "No, it's not what it looks like. I know how it sounds, but I have a good explanation. And then you will understand." I promised to explain. In a commanding and dark voice that she had never heard from me before, I spoke slowly, emphasizing every word. "Obviously, we need to discuss this. If you have any hope of staying married to me, you will do exactly what I say. If you don't do this, then don't bother coming home because our marriage will end. Right now, you're going to grab your purse and walk out of here, looking straight ahead and not looking at your boyfriend. You'll go straight to your car, drive home, put on the coffee pot, and wait for me to come back. I will be no more than 10 minutes late. You shouldn't text or call your boyfriend or anyone else until we talk. I'm going to talk to your boyfriend and explain why you had to leave. I noticed that she didn't look me in the eyes, and I guess it was because she felt guilty about being caught like that. And one more thing, when you arrive home, don't change your clothes and stay in this dress. I want you to wait for me in the same form as now. If you don't fulfill my request, then don't even come home tonight. Then I'll call you later and tell you how things will develop from now on. Oh my God, what have I done? When Josh came to me, I was glad to know that he was safe and not in the military, as I had always been concerned about his safety. Josh was my first love, and it took me a long time to forget him after he left me many years ago. We moved away from each other, and although there was no longer love between us, I still thought about him. I know I love Tony, and he has been the love of my life since we met. I would never want to lose him or hurt him. That's why this sucks so much. Damn, Josh started flirting and saying things to me that he knew would turn me on. He always had a way of getting me to do things and act like a schoolgirl, and I hated the fact that I couldn't resist. I tried to push him away, but his constant flirting and sexual messages wore me down until I finally agreed to meet him for lunch. Talking to him made me feel so guilty and mean. I knew I shouldn't do this and that I should tell Tony about Josh coming back to town and that we talked, but I kept it a secret and I regret it more than anyone can imagine. Josh has a way of making me feel like I belong with him, and when he asked me to wear something sexy, I said yes. I knew it was wrong and that I shouldn't even go to lunch with him, let alone wear that dress, but I knew I would do it. What made me suggest you come without panties? Am I really that shallow and stupid? Yes. When we were dating, he always insisted that I not wear them. And now when he invited me to lunch, it was like old memories just came back and became normal. I almost said no because I felt so guilty. But a text from Josh saying he couldn't wait to meet me set me on this path. It was hard not to tell Tony, but I just figured one dinner for old time's sake wouldn't be a big deal. Just for a couple of hours, just like old times, just like he said. Josh knew how to get me to do things even when I didn't want to. I'll be honest, when I saw him in the restaurant, I felt horny. I knew we had a special chemistry, and now he looked sexier than even I remembered. 8 years in the Marine Corps created such a mass of beautiful muscles that any woman could dream of. My face turned red as he kissed me and helped me sit in a private booth. It was like old times. We laughed, and it felt like he never left. I felt happy and excited to be around him, and when he took my hand in his on the table, I felt safe and warm. We were only there for a few minutes, laughing and having fun, when out of nowhere Tony appeared in front of us. And the next thing I knew, he suddenly sat down right in front of us with a sadistic smile on his face that sent a chill down my spine. I felt my heart stop as I realized what I was doing and what it all looked like. When Tony looked down at us holding hands, my world fell apart. I saw the pain and anger in his eyes, and I wanted to jump over the table and hug him and tell him how much I loved him and take away his pain. I could never intentionally hurt Tony, but that's exactly what happened. The way he looked at me with disgust and contempt broke my heart. The man I love and have been with for the last 5 years was looking at me with another man, a former lover. I didn't know what to do and sat there, frozen and speechless,